got JiberishUI here. Thanks everyone for hopping in. We're doing an interview with Eltreum, the author, developer of Altruism, and Trenchy's here as well to help with the interview. But Altruism, Eltreum, I'll hand it over to you really quick if you want to do a quick intro, and then we'll hand it over to Trenchy too.
I don't really have anything to say. It's just I'm Eltreum. I make altruism. I fix altruism whenever I can, and that's what I have been doing, and that's pretty much it.
Love it, Eltreum. And thanks for doing this. Seriously, we'll get into this a little bit, but I've been designing and creating UIs for a while, not very long, but altruism like really sparked the fire within me to really make a ton of interesting new UIs. And without your add-on, really, I don't believe I'd be able to design really like awesome, inspiring, different UIs because all of the amazing options that you have in altruism with like gradients and borders and colors and text and just there are so many options with altruism that it's just opened a whole new world for me and for hundreds of thousands of other people that have downloaded your add-on and used it. So really just like hats off to you. Thank you so much for even doing this interview. You've been such a huge help for me developing gibberish UI. You you helped me create the installer, and like I don't have any coding experience. I don't know how to develop an add-on or anything like that, but you honestly like were proactive and like reached out to me and said, "Hey, let's create an installer for you." I was like, "What? Are you serious?" We'll get into more of the story here in a little bit, but just thank you so much, Altruism. You're the man. I appreciate you so much, and thanks for doing the interview with us.
It's no problem really. Like this whole time has always been about just keep going, basically.
It's awesome, awesome. Trenchy, he's the myth, legend, pixel perfectionist as well. I've known Trenchy for it hasn't even been that long. I want to say maybe a year, Trenchy.
Yeah, it's been about a year.
That's crazy. It's years gone by so fast, but
Yeah.
we just met through ElvUI and through Altruism, and we started messaging back and forth, and you were actually like open to doing just a quick test of my WTF and interface folder before we even started the add-on. And I just wanted to see like, hey, I'm going to be sharing this out with people. Would anyone be willing to like test this out for me? And you were the first person and only person that was like willing to help me out. So that's how our relationship kind of started, right?
Yeah, basically, you had started posting. I think I saw something of yours in the Elf Discord and the Share UI piece, and you just like, hey, doing all this stuff, and you had a bunch of folks asking for the profile strings and whatnot, and I was like, hey man, let me help you with this. Then we started talking about ways to make it better, and that's when Eltreum started offering his assistance, and then it went into developing the installer for everything. But yeah, I'm Trenchy. I do not develop. I criticize harshly though.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And so, something I'm thinking about right now. I hope everyone on the live stream can actually hear Trenchy and Eltrium. If anyone's out there, let us know really quick. If not, this will be recorded. I'm pretty sure it's capturing you guys, but I know the recording is, but I don't know if the live stream actually is. So we'll see. Uh, on that note, Eltrium again, thanks for doing this. We'll walk through a ton of questions with you and get some feedback, and I'm going to share some of my story as well. Trenchy too, but as everyone kind of knows, on the Discord, I just sent out a poll of just like, hey, for my next video, thinking of a few different things here. One of which would be doing an interview with Altruism, and by far, just like ever, I think there's over like 50 votes in the Discord to have an interview with you. So here we are. And again, thank you for doing this. And I guess just to get started, tell us about your journey into World of Warcraft, Eltreum, and like even how you first got into the game.
So my journey into the game really begins, I think, with Warcraft 3. I played Warcraft 3 and Frozen Throne like in 2003, somewhere around there, if I recall. And that's my first contact with like the Warcraft franchise. I didn't play Warcraft 1 or 2. And then after Warcraft 3, in 2004, WoW came out. But back then, I didn't have broadband or anything. It was just dial-up, and it was bad, basically. So I only got to play the game really in 2005. But at the time, it was the same thing. I still had only dial-up. I could only play sometimes. And I didn't really stick with the game. Like, I got bored around, like, level 10, 15 or something. And I basically quit. I remember I was, like, in Red Ridge. And I played like a dwarf hunter, and I was just questing, and then I saw this orc shaman just walking on water, and he just walked past me, and he did, I believe it was Urchok, but I'm not quite sure, but I think it was Urchok, and basically one-shotted me. And I believe that was the last day I played the game until way later in Cataclysm. I came back during Cataclysm, and I have been playing the game basically kind of on and off since then. Like, I play for a patch, maybe another patch I don't play, or maybe I play the whole expansion. Depends, but that's basically my journey has been kind of like that.
Love it. Love it. So, but nowadays, I guess, like, has it been like the last couple years where it's been a lot more time devoted to the game, or is it still kind of off and on, even with like the UI development and things now?
Sorry, say that again?
Would you say that you are spending a lot more time with the game over the last like couple years with like the UI and the development side of things?
Yeah, definitely. I think that especially during Shadowlands, I stayed with the game because of the UI. Like, because for me, making Altruism has been kind of like another mini game, let's say, where it's kind of deeper than just the game, right? Sometimes the game itself, I'm not really having fun with the game, but making the UI is fun for me. And so I keep going, I keep trying to find ways to add things. My curiosity gets the best of me, and I just keep going that way. Like, it definitely made me stick with the game after I started Altruism.
That's awesome. Yeah, I started back in 2006. I was 16 years old. My buddy Nick, we were having a family get together in Utah for like a ski trip, and one of my buddies, Nick, came along, and he brought his laptop with him. And one of the nights, he whipped it out. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and he's just like over in the corner. We have my whole family out, and he's over in the corner doing something. I walk over, I'm like, Nick, what are you doing over here? And I look at his screen, and he's playing video games. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? You're playing video games? He's like, come sit, watch this. And it was during Vanilla WoW. I think he was in a raid or something like that. And I was just like, wow, this is, I cannot believe you're playing video games. You're how old? You're 17 years old, and you're playing you're playing this wizard fantasy game. Literally like 2 weeks later, he got me hooked, and I was really hooked. I was a devout WoWer from like 16 to 18 years old every day for 16 hours a day, probably. Like, I was fully addicted, but I loved it. And I got to do some of the raids in vanilla, and then got into BC and Wrath of the Lich King, and ever since then, I've played. I did miss the most important, and I think it's your favorite expansion, Mists of Pandaria. I missed it completely. I went on a mission for my church and just it wasn't able to play, which is so sad. So I'm actually looking forward to that classic release. That's how I got into it. It was just my buddy playing at my house at a family event, and I was hooked. It's just been the best game I've ever played. I don't even look forward to. I know this is a little different for you, Eltreum, because you do play games outside of WoW pretty consistently. I've seen your Steam account and I see how many video games I see how many video games you have. I have quite a few as well, but even to this day I really don't enjoy other video games. That's probably like true addiction, right? I don't know.
I don't think I'm really addicted to games. I have spent quite a lot of time not playing them as well. But yeah, I play quite a lot of games actually. It's probably my main hobby, really.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Trenchy, would love to hear just your journey into World of Warcraft too.
Yeah, I played vanilla a little bit. My early days in WoW were really bad. Like, um, I played vanilla, hated it, quit after level 10, kind of like Eltreum, and then towards the tail end of Burning Crusade, I had just came back home from Afghanistan, and a buddy of mine was like, "Let's play this game." I'm like, "All right, fine." Got super hooked. DKs were coming out in like a month, so it was a big race to get to 60, so I could start a Death Knight. I went deep into like the really terrible South Park version of Addicted to WoW. I did it all day, every day, and it had some. My wife and I kind of looked at each other one day and we were like, "This is too much. We haven't showered in a week," kind of thing. And I stopped playing. I came back. I also missed Kata and missed. Um, and I came back in Warlords, and I've been basically on nonstop since Warlords. Um, I got real heavy into Legion. Didn't like BFA or Shadowlands. I've liked Dragonflight so far, but I've been really busy and bored. So yeah, that's the Cliff Notes version.
Love it. Love it. It's always interesting to hear about people's experience with WoW and just how they got into it, and then just over the years, because I think the beginning stages, it's so new, and the world that Blizzard has created is truly like it's awesome. I love MMOs. Yeah, I love this one. It's specifically, but it's kind of interesting how there's been some ebbs and flows with the game, and we've all experienced it, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But I do feel like Dragonflight's been a really good expansion. I'm hoping for the best for the next one. But Eltrium, I guess, like moving forward, got us into your journey into World of Warcraft. What about the start to designing UIs, and how did you come up with the idea for Altruism?
So that was a long road, kind of. Like I have always liked the add-ons aspect of WoW. You know, the ability to modify the UI, and I started using ElvUI in Mist, but it took all the way until it was like late BFA, early Shadowlands, to where I started getting more advanced, like with weak auras and like, more custom stuff into LVI. And I made basically the UI you have right now. I made like a proto version of that in that patch, into like the pre-patch or like the first patch of Shadowlands. And some people liked it. I posted on LVUI Discord in the Show Your UI channel, and then I wanted to add some more stuff using weak auras, but the weak auras Discord, a lot of people there told me like, hey, it's better if you do you do an add-on. So I did my first add-on was actually a Great Vault add-on. So it's just a simple add-on that adds an icon for the Great Vault, and that got picked up by like Wallhead and Icy Veins and stuff. And I thought, okay, well, I know nothing, but maybe I could learn more. And later on, a few months later, I decided to basically make a plugin with my profile, and then add, other add-on profiles like DBM, Big Wigs, and so on. I found Lucky One's plugin, and then I talked with him, and he allowed me to use that as basically a baseline, and that's how I started. It was basically I used his plugin to start, And then I researched more and more and more, and I kept adding more and more stuff.
I did
And
not.
that's how.
I didn't know about the Shadowlands Vault add-on because I am like 100% certain I downloaded that and used that. I did not know that was yours. To this day, I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, funny enough, that took a very long time for Altruism to pass the Great Vault add-on. I think it was only like this year, like recently, that Eltreum became like bigger than the Great Vault add-on. But the Great Vault add-on requires really like basically no work from me. Like after it was made, it was basically just changing the version and like releasing it because it's really simple. While like a lot of the work went into Altruism. So for a long time, it was the last popular add-on that was taking like more time to basically work or
Wow.
figure out.
Wow. That's crazy. I had no idea. And with the Lucky, when you got interested in Lucky's add-on and started using it and then leveraging it for altruism, did you like develop a relationship with Lucky too? Is it something where you guys were talking a lot and did you reach out to him or what did that look like?
I okay, so before that, I actually had made the ElvUI glues for the login screen, and that's how I got access to some of the private channels on the ElvUI Discord for programming. And when I decided to make my plugin, I installed basically every ElvUI plugin, and I looked at the options, right? And what I saw was there were a lot of them. They're very very good, but they were too complex for me, right? Because when I began, I really didn't know much. And the simplest one that did what I wanted to do was really Lucky Ones because it was really his profile and then his add-on profiles, which was basically what I wanted to do. It was basically like the same thing that I wanted to do, but of course using my profile, which is completely different from his,
Mm-hmm.
and my add-on profiles and so on. So I asked over there. I asked over there like if I could use his, and he said okay you can. And then I opened the folder and like opened the files and started like basically reworking his UI, right? Like removing his profile, adding my profile, removing his add-on profiles, adding mine, that sort of thing, and rearranging some of the options because I wanted to change the look. So I looked into ElvUI options, like, oh, how does ElvUI do options? And then ElvUI had like a different lib that I didn't understand until much later. So it took like some efforts, and yeah, that's how I started.
Pretty wild. Honestly, you just like opening up his add-on and looking through the files like that, just having that thought in your mind to like, oh, I'm just gonna check out how he actually did this and I'm gonna try to iterate on it. I don't think most people try to do that. I know I didn't.
Well, to be clear, I only did that after he allowed me to.
Sure,
Otherwise, I
sure.
would have gone with the ElvUI plugin. There's like an ElvUI plugin, basically add-on, like a very basic one. The one that I sent you when you originally started JiberishUI. I would have used that, and it would have taken me longer to figure out like how to add options, how do I do the other add-on profiles, that sort of thing. So it was a huge help because I could, basically jump that part and like, oh, this is how you do it, and then I could just go from there. But WoW in general is, for the most part, it is like that. Like it's basically poking the dark to find like how it works, because for the most part, a lot of the functions in WoW are not documented. Like it's all community based. The Wowpedia, the Discords, and this sort of thing.
Pretty pretty awesome. I know, when I started reaching out to you, um, and you kind of told me, hey, you should start to learn about this stuff. Like you should yourself go into Lua and see what I've done with my UI and try to iterate on it a little bit. I know not in as much detail, but for me personally, when I've tried to do it myself, it's like, wow, there's a lot to learn. It's not easy, right? And so having mentors and having, you know, the ElvUI guys and having Lucky help you do it, I mean, it's definitely needed. I think unless you are a very smart individual like yourself, where you've been able to really study and learn and develop all these things yourself, it takes someone special, because it's not easy. At least for me, it's not easy. Even just like creating some of the profiles that I've done and exporting them in the proper way to Wago, that was a feat in itself for me. And then having you kind of tell me like, hey, you should create an installer. I'll help you, but here's what you would need to do. Here's what you need to learn. Like, it was a lot. It was kind of overwhelming for me. I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot. So there is a lot of material out there to learn from and things like that. But really, like, having a mentor, having someone that could help you along the way, it's almost needed, I think.
I definitely got a lot of help from the ElvUI developers, especially like Repoc. Repoc, the author of Shadow and Light, has been a huge help, like along the years, along the time. He helped me through quite a number of problems I had.
It's awesome.
But it's like you need kind of everyone, you know. You will find if you like keep going, you will find that some things that happen are like one person figures out how to do something, and then after they figure out how that works, then other developers can use basically that knowledge to do the same thing, you know. So having the communication with other people really helps.
Yeah. I think that's why I love this community so much as well. I don't remember when I started using ElvUI. I want to say it's probably Warlords. I had like tested it out, I think, early. I don't even know if it was Wrath, but I know in Warlords I downloaded it and started using it more. And then moving into BFA, I joined the ElvUI community and started seeing the show your UI profiles that were being shared from like Fab and VXT and you and several others. And that's what like kind of got me started and really interested in ElvUI. But the community over there it's crazy. It's awesome. Even right now, it's such an awesome community, and there's a lot of activity going on in the ElvUI Discord, especially in support. Because like I said, it's even, you know, developing UIs and developing ElvUI profiles and add-ons and things like that is one thing, but, you know, also just leveraging the add-on itself for the first time, if you're not used to leveraging add-ons, or if you've just been using like Bartender and maybe shadowed unit frames for the last like 5, 10, 15 years, and then you move to ElvUI, it's a lot. And you see that in the Discord with all the requests and support and things like that. But the community is so active over there, and everyone's so helpful. I would say you have a different approach, and I know, Trenchy, you could actually talk to this point. Yeah, I can hand it over to you right now just with this. But Eltreum, you are definitely different than the rest.
Yeah, I think the simple version of the question, I'm going to expand on it for a second, but the simple version of the question is, what drives you to be so helpful to the community, especially within your Discord? I'm like Gibberish. I've used ElvUI for a long time. It's intimidating on the surface. Lampy wraps it up really well and says, you know, it's 90% of getting ElvUI to work is just finding out where the option is. But the reality here is that oftentimes with some of the UIs that I've used within ElvUI, or the profiles that I've used within ElvUI, the folks, some of those designers or developers, are really difficult to talk to. They are short-tempered. They tell you to look at the pins, check the pins, do this, but you don't do that, which is one of the reasons that I became kind of like, you know, more and more inside your Discord and hanging out and asking questions. And you've always like exuded this patience. You may not have been patient, but you exuded this patience with simple things. What about maintaining altruism has driven you to take that perspective with even some of the more basic questions that folks ask you?
Well, personally, I have been on the other side, right? I have basically also not known anything about how ElvUI works or how add-ons work or, anything like that. And I also dislike having errors and bugs and, issues with my UI. So if someone has an issue and they don't know how to fix it, I understand and I want to fix it, right? So I also want to have my plugin not have issues, right? I want it to be stable. I want it to be good. So yeah, I just go from there and I figure out like how it's happening, how I can fix it. If it is actually an error, like I cut like a lot of stuff by simply adding the debug mode so I can instantly know, is this a problem with my add-on or maybe it's someone else's add-on? Because people can have like hundreds of add-ons and figure out which one is, the guilty one can be hard. So yeah, it's it. I don't really focus on patience. It's really about just being on the other side, basically. Like I
Yeah.
know where people are coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I mean, again, from my perspective, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for Jib, is, you know, we can come with these ideas and, hey, I can't make this thing fit or this thing work. And like, I can't count at this point how many times in your Discord I've been like, hey, how do you do this thing? Trenchy, reload the dang game, or something like that. Hey, how does it feel to see someone use your plugin um, to create completely different versions of the UI or layouts, like you've watched Gibberish do, and he's taken gradients and colors and just gone bonkers with it. Does that feel any different to you than just a person downloading Altruism and using it as you have it designed?
Really feel it very like I don't really think it's very different. Of course, like sharing my plugin like profile is different because you're basically advertising. But for me, it's the same, really. Like the only thing I'm really worried about is if you're having issues. Like if I see a screenshot and I see the bug sack like Gibberish has, and it's red, I am worried that it's my UI causing it. It's more about that. It's
Is it red right now? Oh, it's not red right now.
yeah, thankfully it's not red. Or maybe like for example, shadows. It's like all of the shadows that I do, they're basically manual, right? I add the frame, I adjust the size of the shadow for the frame, and quite often someone comes up with like a new setting, a new layout for the unit frame, and it's something I didn't expect, and I have to adjust for that setting. So it's more about that. It's like what kind of error or what kind of issue will they have, and how can I fix it? It's really what I think about.
Right on.
I remember like one of the first times that I shared what like in show your UI and ElvUI Discord. I just started using Altruism, and there's like I had Bug Grabber and Bug Sack. I never even check it. I never even look up there until now. Until since I've developed JiberishUI, like this is important to me because of what Eltreum just explained. Like we need to make sure that we're improving and fixing any problems. But one of the first times I had posted something, I got like a ton of good feedback on the profile I shared. But Eltreum was like, "Hey, looks nice. Hey, can you send me that bug sack that you have? It's red." He was honestly just interested in, because he saw that I was using his UI. He just wanted to know, like he just said, I want to know if that's a problem that's being caused by altruism. And so I started like looking into this a little bit more, but I was kind of blown away that he cared about that. He's like, "Hey, it looks like that's awesome UI, but there are some issues going on in the background." And to be honest, for me,
if it didn't really affect my gameplay, and if I couldn't really notice anything, I never cared about this at all. So funny, but now I do. But yeah, I mean, your UI, we were talking about this when we first hopped on to the interview before we started streaming. But your UI, Eltreum, is just like beautiful, right? It's so clean. It's literally perfect in every way. I love the textures, the colors, and all of the options, right? From
You're not even using all the options, though. You don't even.
You don't. Like, you use like half the options, Gibberish.
I know, that's I'm
There's
getting
like so many things you haven't even messed with yet.
I'm getting there. But it's crazy, right? And that's the thing. Like, I haven't even checked out a lot of this stuff. Like, even like leveraging combat music, all of the border functionality. Like, literally yesterday was one of the first times I actually put some effort into borders, and I posted in my Discord some glow borders I'm going to develop here soon. But there's literally just like so many options. I really do think it's the most comprehensive plugin that's ever been created. But at the same time, like Trenchy has said, the UI is amazing, but I still feel like this need sometimes to make things my own. And it's been refreshing because you have that same mentality, Eltreum, where you've made and developed Altruism into your own. Like, you've made this into a way that is pleasing to you. You feel like this is a great way to play the game visually, aesthetically, but also in a way that you can raid and do Mythic Plus and do everything that you do in game. And you know, that's why I make changes to your profile as well, because I play the game a little bit differently and I see things a little bit differently. And I always like to, you know, get inspiration from plugins and from UIs. As you probably have seen, I'm like super active in the ElvUI show your UI Discord, on Wago, you know, you name it. Super active in those places because I like to get inspired by plugins and UIs and then try to make it my own too. Put my own twist on it. And you've given me, like, you know, you've opened the floodgates of possibility. And again, I haven't even leveraged everything quite yet, but just all the options that you've given everyone with, you know, even creating custom class colors and all the gradients, all of the skins and shadows and profiles for different add-ons. Like, it's insane. And it's really just given me this new avenue for me to, like, test out my own creativity. And I really find a lot of joy with just sitting down and iterating on profiles. It's really weird. It's weird, but it's fun.
I think it's really neat to watch, like, Altruism. I think when I downloaded Altruism the first time, I tried to use it as it was, and I was blown away. Like, the nameplates, how he had automatically adjusting sizing nameplates in it, or does still have. I looked at that and I was like, dude, that's so cool. And then I started doing some of the content I was used to doing, and I wasn't good enough. I'm not a good enough player to click on little nameplates. I needed everything to be bigger, but it was constantly challenging, like, my piece to adopt more of Altruism into my UI and start shedding the other plugins that existed in favor of Altruism. And I'm at the point now where it's just Altruism and Blinky's media tags, and really exclusively for, like, very unique pieces. And Blinky's been great too. I got two questions. Gibberish, you kind of touched on it there, but I think a lot of folks, especially inside your Discord and inside the ElvUI community, get flooded with a new UI, and if we're lucky, 2 new UIs every day. One, how severe is your ADHD? And then 2, is it where do you get your inspiration from to design your layouts and colors and everything that, and then leverage a tool like Altruism to accomplish what you're looking for?
killing me, Trenchy. It is pretty severe, I would say, from a young age. but honestly, like it's kind of fun, right? It's where I find a lot of enjoyment right now with the game. Is I work full time. I'm married. I have a 2-year-old child. I don't get a lot of time to like do raids, and I'll do Mythic Plus. You've seen my videos on YouTube. I'll do a lot of the content, but I honestly don't have as much time as I used to. And developing UIs has given me this new way to play the game where I could do something for 20 minutes and then come back to it. Just like someone that is like painting or drawing or like an artist where you can like create something, walk away, and even like think about it more and look up a video or look up another plugin, or even watching TV shows or listening to music. Like all these things kind of like inspire me to really. It's weird. Like I drive into World of Warcraft with these things, and like I could apply this somewhere into the game and into a profile that would look really cool or be something completely different that I haven't really seen before. And so, anyways, with the time that I have, creating UIs has given me like this new way to play the game, and then seeing the feedback that I've gotten from people when I do share it out, it's like holy crap! Like people like this. That's really cool. I didn't think anyone would. It's something that really caught my eye, and I love the way this looks. But I'm gonna share it out and see what people think, and it's been super positive, and that's just like fueled the fire a little bit more, I would say. But looking at Eltreum's UI, looking at Benix, Miraculous, and then even profiles that are being shared by people in my Discord with like Rebel Mania and Clack and Levy and like you name it, everyone. When I see something, I'm like, that is awesome. Or I could make this into something my own, and I could apply gradients and altruism colors and shadows to this. I could make this look a little bit different, right? And so whenever I see something, it really does, whether it's good or not. I really just love looking at UIs and then thinking of ways that I could put my own spin on it, and then trying to do it in game. That's like fun to me. It's weird, but I really do enjoy just like messing around with the in-game elements that ElvUI has developed and what Altruism has created, and just making a simple profile, even like the base ElvUI that comes when you download it at first. I mean, all you have to do is download Altruism, and you can go through the profile and obviously get this, what you're seeing on the screen right now. But you could skip the install and then just apply gradients and make the default ElvUI profile look so much different, so much better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I just try to put my own spin on things. I'm not an artist at all, but in game in World of Warcraft, I feel like I'm an aspiring artist that just likes to make cool looking UIs that are aesthetically pleasing and also good for gameplay and get things done when you're playing in arena or dungeons or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it's really neat to watch like how you've kind of, for lack of better words, flooded with so many different takes, and then seeing other folks be like have the same thought process as you and be like, oh cool, I didn't know that option existed. And it gets back into the Altruism's option suite is robust. With this is for Eltreum, with the option suite being so robust, and it almost feels like you're kind of hitting up against a point where you're going to be incorporating functions that other plugins have. We've talked about this briefly in some other channels, but I think it's neat to hear or have you share, like, when we talk about like what's Giberish's motivation to design his layouts, what's Eltreum's motivation to incorporate new features or new designs. What do you look for when you're trying to bring in that next piece to Altruism?
Well, a lot of the time, it's really other games. I try to avoid adding stuff that other plugins do. Like I don't want. I don't want to absorb another plugin. That's not my goal. So, for example, like Bennick has this Bennick style that he puts like a line, a class color line above
Yeah.
basically all the frames. And I will not do that. You know, someone asked me, hey, can you copy that? I was like, no, because that's basically Bennick's style. That's his thing. So if I edit that, it'd be like I'm invading his space, let's say. So what I try to do is whenever I play a game, I try to find something neat on the UI of the game, and then I later try to add it into WoW. Like for example, like the gradients, they come basically from seeing, and this is you know, Final Fantasy has mods basically, but they're not official. And some of the plugins there, I saw screenshots of gradients in Final Fantasy. And I thought, well, if Final Fantasy, which doesn't even have official mods, is getting gradient unit frames or gradient frames, I should be able to make something similar into WoW. And then I research, you know, like maybe there's a way to do this, and I find some post on WoW interface or maybe on a Discord, someone figuring out how to make a texture bit gradient, and then from there I try to find a way to apply it to unit frames, and then how to make it work when health updates and other sort of thing. Besides that, a lot of the stuff recently is really people's suggestions. People ask like, "Hey, could you add skin like this?" It's like, "Okay, could you skin this add-on?" Sure. And I try to make it work, make it look nice. I recently did in dev. I tried to skin Auctionator. It's not quite done, and it's not the same as other add-ons because it's like my own spin on the skin. And the problem also is if Auctionator updates, I have no idea if it will keep working. But I got curious. I wanted to skin it, and it I did, and that's basically what I did.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, from my experience in chatting with you about feature requests or what you're working on, a lot of, is it safe to say that a lot of kind of the iterative updates you do to Altruism is mostly kind of, can I do this?
Yeah, it's basically like that. Is it possible to do this? First, it's really like, do I want to do this? If I want to do this, if I think it's a good idea, then I will try to do it. I'll try to figure out what's going on, how to make it work. If there's some issue, like for example, like if you go now, Gibberish on the maps, if you're on dev, you can enable the rotate mini map. And rotate mini map is because the other day I was talking with Simpy, and I saw that like if you enable the rotate mini map CVAR, or well, now you gotta go into edit mode, but if you enable that, when you rotate the mini map and it's the square map on ElvUI, you're gonna see these black borders. It's really going to be the square, and the square is just gonna rotate, and the corners are, of course, just black. They're not perfect. So what I did was, well, can I make the mini map rotate and be round and have the cardinal directions? And I spent basically a night, like a day, trying to make it work, and I did. I did add the options. It's coming next version, and that's basically how it goes.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at that right now. I remember you posting this the other day as something that you were working on. Um, what do you have any, aside from the mini map, do you have any killer features that you would like to see added to Altruism? Is there something that you think is missing but you haven't started working on yet?
Right now, not really. Like, well, it's been like this since like about a year ago. I'd say after I added gradient, it's been really like I think the Ultra's kind of feature complete. But there's always something that shows up, right? There's always like some other idea, some other feature that someone suggests or that I think about. and I end up like work on it and then adding it. So while I think it's complete, I wouldn't say it really is because I don't think it's over. Basically,
Right on. You got Gibberish in the chat, and you've been working with him a lot recently. We were talking earlier, and I think that based on hearing your process to get to altruism and how you kind of worked with others, Gibberish is kind of in a similar spot, and there's a chance that a handful of folks who want to get into some plugin or add-on development would be here. What advice would you have for those folks, or Gibberish even?
if you want to get into WoW add-ons, you definitely should join some of the communities. You should join like WoW add-ons, WoW UI dev. You should check WoW interface. You should check WoWpedia. WoWpedia is not just like a Warcraft wiki for like the game. It also has a whole set of the API. Like you can go WoWpedia and type, for example, like create texture, and it's gonna have a page telling you how to create a texture, what you need to do, and all of that. It's a really useful tool. It's basically you're gonna need to check the tools that people use and basically join them to talk with them and learn more.
I think that's been big for me recently. Just trying to talk to more developers and look at more add-ons, and one that just brings more inspiration on what to do. But like you were saying, Eltreum, like super important just to be part of the community and learn from each other. And there's people that are willing to help too, and to give you aid if you are trying to develop an ElvUI plugin or any type of add-on. If you're in those communities and learning from each other and participating, it's gonna be massively helpful, and you'll get like a mentor like I have with you, Eltreum. um, would you say there's any like big I don't know, not like blockers, but any like challenging things that you go through right now, Eltreum, when you're developing altruism, um, or is there any like challenging projects you are trying to develop right now?
I think the most challenging part right now is definitely optimization. I think that after they removed a lot of the CPU functions, and I think it was 10.05 or 10.1, it became a lot harder, at least for me, to basically optimize the add-on and like figure out which functions are using more resources and then look into them and try to optimize. I'd say it's probably the hard, at least for me, it's the hardest part right now is really that.
What is it with like the optimization? Is it specific add-ons that you're just not able to take a look at? Is that the Blizzard kind of problem right now?
Well, so you remember ElvUI CPU.
Yep.
If those that don't know, ElvUI CPU was an add-on that basically listed all of the ElvUI functions and which one was using more resources, how many calls it did, how much time it used, how much memory, and so on and so on. And it was extremely useful last year to optimize ElvUI to figure out which modules were using more resources than they should, which ones were okay, and make things better because it was getting worse. But then Blizzard removed the functions that were being used, and so now it's really hard, at least for me, to figure out, you know, what part of altruism is really using more resources. I assume that it's Gradient because of how they reworked Gradient for Dragonflight. But it could be that it's something really small. It could be, for example, and this is just an example, that the quest skin is actually using a ton of memory. But I lack the resources right now to figure that out. Like, I don't have the functions that I used to have to see that, hey, this part of altruism is actually using more than it should. And then I go in and try to fix it, try to decrease the memory, try to see why that's happening.
So that would definitely be a feature that you would want to be added back in to the game.
I would love they added, the CPU functions back, definitely.
Yeah, I wonder when that will be, because that is extremely important for add-on creators like yourself. Anything else that you would be looking for is like a dream state feature or change to World of Warcraft as a whole, or even just for like the add-on community?
I think, okay, so there's a lot of things, but I think we can all agree that improving the pixel perfection or achieving pixel perfection would be a goal. And the main problem is that WoW scaling is based on a resolution that, in my opinion, doesn't really scale well with modern resolutions. It's based on 1024 by 768. The way to calculate pixel perfect UIs or pixel perfect scale is to get 768 and then divide that by your vertical resolution. So if it's 1080p, it's 768 divided by 1080p, which gets you like 0.7111, like a bunch of ones. The problem with that is that as you increase the resolution, so you go 1440p, you go 4K, or you go even higher, that division becomes smaller and smaller. And the truth is, I don't know about you, but I don't see myself using a 50-inch monitor, right? I would expect that I would keep around the same size of monitor that I have right now. I want to have somewhere, around 27. I find 27 very comfortable, but something like 30 could also be very comfortable. Somewhere around there. I don't see myself going much bigger than this, but the game would assume you would, and would assume that your UI scale is getting smaller and smaller, while for every other game, including Windows, including Linux, including anything you use, instead of things getting smaller as the resolution increase, they actually get bigger. And that's the problem. The problem is that instead of the pixel perfect scale becoming bigger because the resolution is increasing, so the size of things should increase to accommodate that larger resolution, they're getting smaller. And so people don't use the pixel perfect scale, and because they don't use the pixel perfect scale, things become kind of weird. Like if you look at nameplates, sometimes some of the borders on the nameplates can have 2 pixels, sometimes they can have 1 pixel. Maybe one side has 1 pixel and then another has 2, depending on the angle. And that's the one thing that I would want to fix, or I would ask them to change, is basically rescaling the game to be more compatible with modern displays.
I feel like this is something Trenchy is passionate about as well.
I mean, at this point, Eltreum's broke this down to me like 9 times. It is. I agree with Eltreum. I think that's a feature or an optimization of the game or an update of the game, whichever you want to call it, that needs to happen. It would just make everything look a little bit cleaner. I mean, I showed you the pictures the other day of just looking at the nameplates, and I turned my camera 6 degrees to the left, and now it's 5 pixels wide, and it's certainly broken like my own creativity when it comes to certain things, because I want everything to be perfectly lined up and whatnot. WeCores is a big it runs into it as much as nameplates or some of the other smaller areas, or just getting spacing right. It's a bigger challenge with like this side of the game than I think a lot of people would give it credit for.
Right, we try to hide it using shadows, using borders, making the borders a little bit thicker. There's a lot of tricks, like a lot of the shadows actually hide those issues. Like I added shadows to nameplates partially to hide the border issue. It's less noticeable if you have like a shadow that makes it a little bit bigger, adds a little bit of an effect than if you, have the frame without anything. Then it becomes a lot more noticeable when you have those issues.
Well, I hope it's a change that they really consider, because people really do want to have exactness when it comes to UIs. Unlike me, as Trenchy knows, I'll go in and like whip up a UI really quick and think it looks perfect, and like you can't see me right now, but like I'll get my face like right up to the screen and like, yeah, that looks good. and then I send it over in the Discord, and Trenchy like zooms in. I forget which application you use for that, but I'm like clearly 5 pixels off on 5 different parts of my UI. A lot of improvement to be made when it comes to pixel perfect, but I need to take baby steps when it comes to pixel perfect to try and get where you guys are at.
I think it's a passion project for sure. Like trying to, and it you don't have to have pixel perfect. There's, again, something else Altruism has, like UIs, and is it's an ultra personal thing. Like you gotta, what works for you is what's going to work for you. What works for me is not going to work for you, and vice versa. You know what I mean? And we've had discussions about layout, and how many. One of my questions has always been like, why do you include yourself in your party frames? As like one of those things. So being off a pixel or two, it's just fun to poke at you because it's an easy target.
100%. And it's been like, thinking of challenges for me too. It's right now it's actually considering and thinking about other people when I am developing UIs. I'm like, this is what I want, and I think that's most important too. Like, especially as just a player, you want to create a UI that is for you. But as I'm like starting to create profiles that are driving interest, I'm starting to think of other people more. And recently when we released JiberishUI and all my profiles, for me, I've never enabled focus frames. I rarely enable boss frames because I just don't look at them, and I don't create focus frames because I main healers, and even for interrupts, like I'm just looking at nameplates and Omni CD, and if everyone's interrupt is on CD, I'm gonna be up next because I'm a filthy casual and a pugger, and I'm not on Discord listening to like callouts or anything like that. So it's been a big learning curve, because when we did release JiberishUI to everyone, we got inundated with support tickets of like, hey, the focus frame's not working, or it's not set up. It doesn't even look like it doesn't even look remotely close to the rest of the UI, and it's because I didn't even touch it, and the boss frames and things like that. So when I think of challenges for me, it's like, wow, I need to really like dive deeper into the UI. And when you look at Altruism and you look at MMediaTag and Blinky's UI with MAUI, I mean, these guys have been iterating on this for a long time. And when I come in and look at this, I'm like, this is perfect. I don't see any issues anywhere. It's because you guys have put in so much effort and time and iterations, and you've listened to the feedback, and like if I were to open up a focus frame, it's going to be there. And the boss frames, because you've literally thought about every single piece of the UI. And that's a place where I'm trying to get to as well. I'm improving. I would say it's been an improvement, but it's pretty amazing everything that goes into add-on development and UIs specifically, because there's so many different elements and it's so personalized. And again, I think that's why so many people like to iterate and also have like new UIs all the time. It's not like people get sick of UIs or anything like that, but I think there's always something new that they think about or they get inspiration from, and they want to put that into their UI. And everyone's always looking for updates and changes. And I feel like Altruism, you've done an amazing job because there's always something new. And in the Discord, you have your suggestion channel,
and you take it so seriously, and you really take things into consideration, and you think about the challenges you're going through where you can't really test CPU usage, but you actually go in and take the suggestions and you try to make it work. And if it's a hit on FPS or something or whatever it is, you throw it out the window. But you're always taking in suggestions and you're always innovating the UI, and it's amazing, man. Seriously, and just hats off to you. And I'm so grateful to know you, Eltreum. And all the help you've provided for getting JiberishUI and installer, and all the help you provide me and Trenchy, and it's been such an awesome journey, and appreciate you working with me.
Well, thank you. But I really wouldn't get here if it wasn't for other devs, if it wasn't for ElvUI. So yeah, they're even more of a crazy wizard than I am, basically.
Yes, lots of crazy wizards. And the the Trenchies of the world too. It's been awesome. Like, I know when we first started using Altruism, Trenchy was providing feedback and suggestions like daily. And again, just like seeing you humbly consider the suggestions that we were making and then actually apply them. That was something else that was really cool. Trenchy, you and I have talked about it as well. It's like, holy crap! Like, Altruism just took my suggestion and he put it in the game.
I mean, for me, dude, it was all of that, but then like I used a plater profile and I was like, I want pixel glow on nameplates, and I went in and I brought it up 2 or 3 times in Eltreum's Discord, and then I put a suggestion ticket into Simpy and ElvUI, and initially Simpy's response was, hey, we don't think we need that. And I'm like, well, I don't really, like, personally, I was like, well, I don't really care what you think, put it in, kind of silliness, right? And then Eltreum came out of the blue one day and he was like, yeah, I can do this, and made it work. And I think not even a week later, it was in dev. It was in ElvUI's dev, and it was just really cool because we make these, you get the opportunity to make these suggestions. And it's not just us. So you can go to his suggestions channel right now, and there's a handful of folks who, the latest one was a rectangle mini map. Can we incorporate a rectangle mini map? And it's like, it's just like having that receptiveness from Eltreum and some of the other devs is really, really, it's rewarding because you get to see like your idea is not completely silly. And then too, it's like, hey, there's half a fingerprint on that particular piece of the UI. You know what I mean?
So it's so awesome. It really is. So Eltreum, thank you. You're the man, and the ElvUI guys and the team, but you specifically and Blinky, you guys are awesome. So grateful that you're part of the community and that we get to rub shoulders with you, my friend.
I know, thank you. Like, I don't really see myself as this huge dev or anything. I honestly don't consider myself like a programmer or anything like that. I just view myself as like a guy making his UI who just happens to have some people using it, basically.
See? So humble. I mean, it's kind of crazy because even like in a downturn, as we'll call it, with WoW over the last several years, like your add-on has hundreds of thousands of downloads, hundreds of thousands. And probably, if this was released in Wrath and in even just in early before Shadowlands, what is that, BFA and Warlords, if this was released in Warlords, your add-on would literally have millions of downloads because of how popular it is and how amazing it is. So yeah, you are one of the big wigs, my friend. So thank you so much for doing the interview, Eltreum. I guess the last question that we would ask, and this is a very important one, if you were a character in the World of Warcraft universe, which race and class would you choose?
Okay, so that question is not very simple. I'm gonna try to go very fast through it. But basically, like, I'd say my favorite class was when Survival Hunter was ranged. So before the rework to melee, that was my favorite class. But that's no longer in the game. So I also have another class that is among my favorite, which is Druid. And then another one that I feel would fit is also Paladin. Druid and Paladin, because they're very like versatile. You know, they can do all three roles. They can like heal, tank, and DPS, right? So it would be one of those three classes. If like I had to pick a race, my favorite race in Warcraft 3 was Night Elf. It's not so good in World of Warcraft, but I still probably would pick Night Elf, and it would be like a variation of one of those would really be my character.
I love it. I love it. I'm a huge Night Elf fan as well, and Paladin and Druid. Paladin. I've always been a holy Paladin since the early days when I first started playing, and I've always made holy Paladin. I love the plate. I love the class fantasy. I love being holy and a healer. Like, that would be my dream if I were to ever become someone inside the game. It would probably just a human paladin. That's what's it for me. Trenchy?
This might surprise you, but no, I'm playing a Death Knight. I like the Death Knights. I like all about them. I like Scorpion and Fools when they start to run away. It's all Death Knight and Blood Elf. It's the only race.
Didn't even have to ask you. We all knew.
No, you didn't have to ask that one. If I'm playing anything else, it's because Blood is dead.
Well, too good. So thank you guys so much for doing this. Eltreum, you are the man. Appreciate your time in doing this. I think everyone's going to enjoy learning a little bit more about you and just your UI and your development process and how you got into World of Warcraft. It's been like super fun just talking about it with you guys. So Trenchy, you've been an amazing host as well.
Whoop.
Eltreum, we'll see you on the next one, man. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
See ya.